Welcome to this week's Quantum Alignment Show. I'm excited because we're going to be covering what sometimes people consider to be the basic parts of human design, but it's not really so basic. We're going to be talking about the power, the promise, the pain, and the purpose, see if I can stick any more P words in there, of the profile in your chart. So pull your charts out and follow along. We're going to be talking about the profiles, not just in the context of your everyday life. We're actually going to be looking at what I call the quantum purpose of the profiles, because everything in your human design chart has a higher purpose. We can sometimes get quagmired in the lower energies of the experience of the archetypes that we're carrying in our human design chart. Sometimes parts of our chart give us hiccups. Sometimes parts of our chart drive us and become our strength and the power of the expression of who we are. Everything that's in that chart, and if you think about the chart, it really is like a Rolodex of key archetypes or key stories that you're living out in this lifetime. Everything that's in that chart has a spectrum of possibility for how you can be experiencing it. I really deliberately and consciously am saying a spectrum because I think that in traditional human design, we talk about you either are or you are not, meaning the element that you're expressing or the part of the story of your life that you have in your chart, you're either living it or you're not, and it's a theme. I think that's a really black and white way to look at a human design chart, and I don't think that anybody either is or isn't their chart, that the story of our human journey has a lot more complexity to it. It has a lot more variability to it. Sometimes we live out the highest expression of an energy, and I would say that's on the far end of the spectrum. And sometimes we live out the lower elements, and sometimes a combination in between. So as we go through this conversation, I really want to address the spectrum, and most importantly, maybe give you some vocabulary that can support you in reframing your understanding of what's in your chart so that you can find the words to live in. There's a word in Hebrew. It's one of my favorite words in Hebrew. It's called davar. Davar is a word in Hebrew. Davar is actually the word for word, but it's also the word for thing. In fact, things don't exist. If you really go back to the beginning of the Old Testament, things don't exist until they receive a name, a word. I think that part of the beauty of human design, and I think frankly one of the gifts of human design, is that it begins to give you the words for what's possible for you. And once we begin to have the vocabulary of the story of who you are, then we start to be able to manifest, to make that story of your possibility actually a thing, a manifest reality in your life. So I like to give you vocabulary, stories, language, different ways of speaking into the potential of who you are so that you can start structuring the energetic template for you to manifest that story in its highest element in your life. So let's get started. All right, profiles. Your profile, if you look at your chart, it looks like a little fraction on your chart. This is an example here. This is a 5-1 profile. So you'll see on there your profile, and it has a little fraction. Your profile has two parts to it. You have the conscious and the unconscious aspect of your profile. So your conscious is going to be the first number. The unconscious is the second number. So I know what's wrong with this. Hang on a minute. See, I'm a manifesting generator. Sometimes I skip steps because I'm moving too fast. Now I'm going to fix this. Pretend like you haven't seen this slide before. Okay, there we go. Your profile has a conscious and unconscious. The first number is called the conscious number. The second number is called the unconscious number. I want to talk about this for a minute because there are a lot of things to understand about a profile. Your profile is your learning style. Your profile tells us a lot about your life path. And as we go through the different lines of the profile today in the class or in our presentation, you're going to learn a lot about the meaning of your personal profile. sometimes there's conversation about, well, what's more important, the first number or the second number? And I'm going to tell you that that's not really the right question. That these two numbers do a dance together, because these two numbers represent an energy that comes from your soul purpose and your life purpose. Your life is a compilation of a soul purpose, and that soul purpose isn't representing your entire soul. Your soul is too big to live one little tiny human life. You're living one intention that your soul set in its manifested form, and your soul is kind of living out a life story. Your soul has a purpose, and your life story has a purpose. So your soul is sort of living inside this life purpose. Both your soul purpose and your life purpose dance together over the course of your life. For some of you, you may find that there is what I like to call a conundrum, meaning a different quality of energy between your conscious number in your profile and your unconscious number in your profile. There are some profiles that have a little bit of tension between the two numbers. There are some profiles that are a little bit more harmonious. Everybody has what I call a conundrum or a struggle in their chart. Everybody does. The biggest adventure we have in this life has nothing to do with everything that's happening out here. It has to do with our own resolution to our own inner challenges with ourselves. And sometimes it means it has a lot to do with our soul duking it out with our life, our soul purpose duking it out with our life purpose. There is a way, as we grow and mature, always, there is a way for us to find harmony between those energies, okay? In fact, that's part of our life purpose, is to find harmony within the different elements of who we are. And the more mature we get, and especially when we look at celestial markers, the more we get past 40 and 50, the more we discover ways to really bring the soul purpose and the life purpose together in harmony and really live out the full expression of our purpose and our wisdom. But we're designed to struggle a little bit with ourselves and wrestle with ourselves. And sometimes in the profile, your soul purpose, which is the first number in your profile, and your life purpose, which is in the second number in your profile, those two elements will sometimes duke it out a little bit. Ultimately, your profile is going to tell you a lot about what you need to stay grounded, what you need to build relationships and how you build relationships. I'm not going to get too much into relationships in the profile today, because that's a pretty intense, long conversation. Your profiles will tell you a little bit about your relating style. It tells you about what you need to regenerate your energy. It tells you about the nature of your life path. It tells you a little bit about whether you're, I will say, an introvert or an extrovert to a certain degree, what you need to do to recalibrate your energy. It gives you a clue about how you need to live your life story in a way that really satisfies you and allows you to discover the meaning of your life in the way that's right for you. You'll see on your chart 3 different kinds of profiles. And I just want to point this out again. I'm not going to go deep into it. There are 12 profiles in total. And for all intents and purposes for this presentation, I'm not going to go deep into what's a right angle, what's a left angle, what's a juxtaposition. I just want you to kind of get the gist of this, because my intention today is to just really hit the lines in each of the profiles. But I want you to see the different profiles. And I want you to understand that the right angle profiles, and if you look at the right angle profiles, you'll see that on the left-hand side, they have the number 1, 2, 3, or 4, but the 4, 6 is a little bit of a weirdo. But 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the most part. The right angle profiles, and I want you to all look at your chart right now and see, are you a right angle profile? The right angle profiles, generally speaking, discover the world from their own inner perspective. So they go out, they have an experience, they bring the experience into themselves, and they learn about the world from their own reference of their own self and their own experience. So to a certain degree, the right angles have an element of internal personal integration as part of how they learn. If you're a right angle, you have internal personal integration around how you learn and experience the world. There is a very rare profile called a juxtaposition profile, and it's only the 4-1 is the juxtaposition profile. The juxtaposition profile is a foundational profile. It likes to get to the root and the bottom and the depth of relationships and the root and the bottom of information. If you are a 4-1 profile, part of your life purpose is to serve as a stabilizing force in the world around you. So you are a stabilizing force in the world around you. You come into a situation and you bring the depth and the quality of energy around relationships and information that allows you to stabilize everything that's around you. The left angle profiles, you'll notice on the left angles we have the 5 and a 6 on the left hand side here. The left angle profiles are what we call transpersonal profiles. What this really means is that, first of all, if you are a left angle profile, a lot of your life experience and a lot of your understanding of life comes from your experience of the themes of your chart in the context of relationships. You learn a lot about what's going on in your life and what you're here to do and what you're here to achieve in your life from your interactions with others. The second thing that's interesting to know about left angles is they are what we call what we call karmic profiles. They're also transpersonal. They're karmic profiles, meaning, and I really want to flesh this out because sometimes I think the vocabulary in human design is not so great. It doesn't mean that you've come back and last lifetime you killed somebody's father, so now they're coming back to get you, or any of those kinds of things that we think of sometimes when we think of karma. What I'm talking about when I say it's a karmic profile, it means that your destiny or your fate or the unfolding of your life story when you are a left angle profile is a little bit more fixed than the right angle profiles, meaning you have a different sense of an inner calling. You have a little bit more rigidity around your life circumstances. If you think about life, and I talk about buffets a lot when I talk about profiles. If you imagine that your life is a buffet, or sorry, if your life is the restaurant, the right angle profiles get to go to the buffet. They have a little bit more choices and options, and they can always go back and choose something different. The left angles order off the menu. You have sort of a set selections of things that happen in your experience. And it's very common if you're a left angle to really feel like, you are here for a reason, you're here for a purpose. And if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm not living my purpose, or I'm not in harmony with my life purpose, or I'm not in any way experiencing my life purpose, or I don't know what it is, and you're a left angle, that can actually give you quite a bit of anxiety sometimes, especially as you get a little bit older. You tend to wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh my God, I'm here on a mission and I don't know what it is and I'm failing my mission. So recognize that you can't fail your mission if you're a left angle, because you have sort of a preset set of parameters that are happening. So you can't fail your mission. Do follow your strategy by type. It'll help your purpose and your mission find you, which is really more what it's about. So let's start talking now about the lines of the profile. As I said, there are 12 profiles. Every profile has 2 lines in it. Every profile is either a right angle juxtaposition or a left angle profile. My goal and my intention for today is to go through all the 6 lines. There are 6 lines that comprise the profiles. I want you to listen carefully to the lines that are in your profile. And rather than saying, oh, this is the one that's conscious and this is the one that's unconscious, meaning I don't know, I'm unaware of the unconscious one. I don't want you to think about it in that way. I want you to instead think about it in the context of, do the themes and the energies of the lines in your profile, do they match up? Are they thematically similar? Or is there a conundrum? Are there aspects of these 2 elements of your personality that are maybe a little bit at odds with each other? Sometimes that happens. And if that's the case, what can you do? What kinds of strategies can you do? What kinds of ways of thinking? What kinds of ways of being can you learn to cultivate that can support you in bringing out the highest expression of both of these lines together? And it's totally possible. Now, that sometimes does mean there's an either or. You'll see that especially when we talk about hermits. There can be an either or a need for one and then the other. But this is a dialogue I want you to really start with yourself. How can you bring these two elements of your personality into harmony with themselves or with each other? Again, for some of you, like a 2-4, for example, for a 2-4, you'll find that it's more of an either or, and you'll find a balance between the either and the or. For those of you who are 3-6s, a 3-6 profile, you will find that those two elements of your personality actually get along really well and actually kind of have harmony there. So each profile is a little bit different. And at the end of our little conversation here, if we still have time, I can talk about different ways that you can find harmony or play with those two energies in your profile. The lines in the profile correlate to the lines in the hexagram. This is the hexagram from the Chinese I Ching. I'm just showing you this. Each line has a particular expression or a particular personality. As we go through this information, I do want you know, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the vocabulary words in human design. Remember, I said words are important, and I don't want you to live into a negative vocabulary word. So I will work a little bit as we go through this to helping you discover maybe some different ways of expressing the energy of the lines so that you find vocabulary that works better for you, that lifts you up and promises you something beautiful rather than something that's hurtful or weird or dark. So it's just in this line, this is the line 1. In human design, we call the line 1 the investigator. Okay. The line 1 is actually the bottom line of what's called the lower trigram. So if you take a hexagram, hexagrams have 6 lines. We always break them in half. We have the lower trigram and the upper trigram. For those of you who are really paying attention and learning a lot of details here that probably you will never need to know anywhere else ever again, the right angle profiles are almost all originating in the lower trigram as the first number in the profile. The left angles are all what we call upper trigram profiles. That's all you need to know about this. Just ignore the rest of it. It's not that important. All it really means is that it's an interpersonal way of experiencing the world, and it's self-referenced, and it needs that integration for learning. So the line 1, if you have a line 1 in your profile, there is an element of your personality that is investigative. It is a foundational line of the bottom of this hexagram. So it's the bottom. And so the mantra or the word that I like to use for the first line is always information and foundation. So the line 1, if you have a line 1, you always want to get to the foundation of information in your life. So what that means is that you'll come and you'll listen to this 1-hour presentation about the profiles. If you're a first line profile, you'll be completely dissatisfied because it won't be nearly enough information for you. And you'll be left with more questions and answers because that's what happens to the investigator. They have lots and lots and lots of questions. They are insatiably curious. And there is built into the first line energy a need to understand. And in fact, if you have a 1 in your profile, you need to understand before you can do anything. Because if you don't know what's happening, if you don't have that foundation of information that you need as a first line profile, then you can get unstable, or you can feel scared or worried or concerned that you don't have enough information to make the right decision, to take the right kinds of actions. The first line can also be very introspective. The internet was created for the first line profile. It's like the first line profile's dream, right? Is a library that operates infinitely at the push of a button. That's the perfect first line profile creation. And actually, if we run, depending on what you think the date of the birth of the internet is, I know Al Gore thinks he started it, but it might be a little different than that. But if we look at the internet, it's actually a 1-3 profile. So, which makes perfect sense, right? The quantum purpose of the first line. If you are a first line profile, your bigger life purpose in the cosmic scheme of things is that you're here to lay the information foundation for the world. You're here to discover, explore, and learn all about the information necessary for the security and the safety of us all. You don't have an answer to something. If you have a question about something, ask a first line profile. They know. They'll tell you. In a crisis situation, they'll say, oh, I read a book about this once. Okay, that's the first line. They know because they've studied and they've researched and they've explored and they've studied some more and they read and they listened and they learned and they watched and they integrated the information necessary to keep us safe and to have knowledge available to us on a bigger level. The second line is called the hermit. The hermit profile, and by the way, I just want to let you know this. What I have learned in looking at human design charts is there's nothing random in a chart. It's not like somebody went, oh, let's put all this stuff together. Oh, and let's just throw this here because we don't know what to do with it. Everything in the chart is brilliantly laid out. There's no coincidences. There's nothing random in your chart. You are a very deliberately and consciously crafted creature. And everything that's in that chart is reflected through various layers of your chart. So if I look at the chart and I say, oh, here's a second line profile, here's a hermit, I'm going to know that probably definitely in every layer of that chart, there's going to be some element of hermit energy that's put in there for a reason. One of the things that I see very commonly is a lot of times people who have hermit energy or line 2 in their profile tend to have a lot of sensitivity in their chart. It's either sensitivity that comes from having a lot of white in your chart, or you have gates and energies that are defined in your chart that make you extra sensitive. The second line profile likes and actually needs to be alone. Okay, you need alone time when you're a second line hermit. It's not a luxury. It's not something you do after you've gotten all your other work done. It's not something you wait for everybody to leave the house to take. It's a necessity for you. You need that alone time because that alone time is how you recalibrate your energy and keep yourself healthy. Especially if you have, which you probably do, a lot of sensitivity in your chart. You like to be alone when you're a second line profile. You need to be alone. There's an irony, though, with the aloneness of the second line. And that irony is that as soon as you go away and you disappear into your hermitage, people notice your absence. It's literally like you have a little energy vortex around your aura that says, hey, I'm going off to be alone. And as soon as you go off to be alone, it triggers some kind of interpersonal alarm somewhere. And all the people who love you, all the people who need you, all the people who adore you go, hey, wait, she's missing. We must go find her. And what happens is you go away, you get time to kind of recalibrate, and then people start calling you. You will be called out if you are a hermit. You will never be allowed to slide into your hermitage so far deep that you can't ever come back out again. You might resist coming back out again. If you have any second line children, especially 2-4s, these are the kids that they never want to go to the birthday party, right? You have to drag them to the birthday party. They don't want to go. They're in the backseat crying and whining the whole time. I don't want to go to Bob's birthday party. I hate this birthday party, right? Then when they get there, you can't get them to leave, right? But that's the nature of the second line. They don't want to give up that alone time. But then when they get out, when they actually come out, they like it. So you have to kind of get them out with a crowbar sometimes. So if you are a second line profile, especially if you are a manifesting generator or a projector or even a reflector to a certain degree, but certainly the manifesting generator, the generator, and the projector who need other people to give them something to respond to sometimes, the second line profile is a really nice profile to have because it kind of causes people energetically to always give you something to respond to or to find you and give you an invitation. The second line can be sometimes kind of shy or coy. You can find sometimes second lines, not consciously, but can sometimes seem a little bit like they're being coy, like almost like they're getting you to call them out. And as I said, this is an intrapersonal or a lower trigram energy. So that alone time is, again, about going in and integrating and evaluating for yourself what you need and what you want. And how do you keep your energy clean and grounded so that you don't get overwhelmed by other people's energies. The quantum purpose of the second line is to integrate knowledge, energy, and wisdom, and to wait for the readiness of others to call you out when it's time for you to share what you know. The third line. Now, in this particular slide, I put the word martyr here because that's what traditional human design calls the third line. I do not like this name at all because it's not about martyrdom. It's about being an experiential learner. Third line profiles are experiential learners. And for you to maximize your wisdom and your understanding of life, you have to be allowed to experiment and explore. Now, one of the other things we say in traditional human design is that the third line learns from trial and error. I hate that because there's no trial and error in the third line. None. Zippo, nada. If you're a third line profile, you've never made a mistake in your life. You're supposed to try things. You're supposed to experiment and explore with things. You're supposed to experience things. If you think about how you experience and understand the world, you're like a little beautiful child wandering around the world with a big giant basket, and every experience you have is like a beautiful fruit that you put in this basket. And the wisdom that you have comes from what you have in this basket, not from the fact that maybe you picked a green fruit one time and you put it in your basket and you realize, oh, hey, this fruit's not ready yet. That wasn't a mistake. That was how you discovered what good fruit looks like. You are here to become an expert when you have the third line energy based on your experience of what works and what doesn't. If you want to know if something works, ask a third line because they've experimented and explored every different angle of whatever it is that they're experts in. If you are a third line profile, you have never, ever made a mistake in your life. Ever. Never, ever. It's all been part of what you're here to learn. And as I said, you are an experiential learner. And again, this is an intrapersonal or a lower trigram line. So it's about, here's how I experience the world. Here's what I've learned from the world from my own experience. It's about your experience and your understanding from your own experience, and then being able to take your own personal experience and then extrapolate it out into the wisdom in the world. The quantum purpose of the third line, the highest potential expression here, or the bigger picture in the cosmic plan of the third line energy, is to explore and experience possibilities and to share your experiences with others to protect and serve them. The martyrdom, which I don't really like that word, remember, the martyrdom of the third line is not about sacrificing yourself. It's about serving others by sharing your experience and your knowledge and your wisdom. The fourth line, now we move to what's called the upper trigram. Remember I said the bottom three lines are the lower trigrams. They're intrapersonal. They're all about your own self-referenced experience. The top three lines in that 6-line hexagram are called the upper trigram. That upper trigram is all about learning through learning through relationships. Okay, so it's about learning through relationships. So the fourth line is sometimes called the opportunist. Again, not a huge fan of this particular word because we don't, I don't know, we have negative connotations around what is an opportunist. You know, that it's kind of a dark archetype, right? Somebody who's going to take what they can take when they can take it. That's not really what the opportunist is about. The opportunist is about somebody who is here to get to the foundation, because it's the bottom line of the upper trigram, get to the foundation of relationship. People who are fourth line profiles have a lot of friends. They have oftentimes they have a huge network. They know people, they connect with people. They're here to understand the world through their relationships and through their connections. They are oftentimes very gregarious and social. Oftentimes people who are fourth line profiles get their opportunities in life from their social network. Their friends will hit them up, or their friends will make suggestions, or they can say, hey, I need a job, and they can tweak their social network and oftentimes find what they need in their own circle of friends. We always say, People who are fourth line profiles never have to stay in a hotel because they have a friend in every city. Not always true, but sometimes. The thing that's important to understand when we talk about the opportunistic nature of the fourth line is that the fourth line needs stability. So if you are a fourth line profile, you need stability. You don't like it when things change. In fact, I often say fourth line profiles hate limbo. You don't like it when you don't know what to expect and what's next. That's the nature of a foundational line, right? The first line kind of has this too. The first line, remember the investigators, they don't like it when they don't know what to know. The fourth line doesn't like it when they don't know what's next. So as a fourth line profile, when we say they're opportunists, what happens with the fourth line is they don't make change until the opportunity to make the change reveals itself. So the way that looks is if you're a fourth line profile, and let's say you want to have a different job, you're not going to leave your current job until you have another job lined up. You're not going to move from your house or to a different place in the world until you have another place set up. It doesn't mean you won't if you're a fourth line profile, but if you do without having the next step set up ahead of time, you'll feel very anxious because that's a very unnatural way for the fourth line to be in the world. The part where fourth lines sometimes get into trouble is sometimes when the fourth line is in a relationship that they don't like very much, or they're uncomfortable with, or they know is not the right relationship, they sometimes won't make the change in that relationship until somebody else shows up. That's same concept, different arena, right? And so they won't leave a partnership or a relationship until they have another relationship waiting in the wings. And we don't like that in our society. We frown on that. We think that's cheating, or we think that's, being kind of low, right? But that's the nature of how the fourth line works. And it's not like the fourth line goes out looking for another partner. They don't. It's the nature of how your energy field works. When you're done, another opportunity presents itself. And that's how you get out of where you are. And so if you're a fourth line profile and you've had that as part of your pattern, I want you to right now forgive yourself because you haven't been doing anything except being yourself. So good job. Okay. The other thing about the fourth line is that they're kind of fixed, meaning they don't do well. If you're a fourth line, you don't do well with criticism, and you really like to know and need to know, like, do I feel safe? Do I have a good foundation with the person I'm in relationship with? The quantum purpose of the fourth line profile is to lay the foundation of community and connection and prepare the way for the sharing and spreading of ideas. You're here to spread and share ideas as a fourth line. The fifth line, the heretic. Now we move into the karmic lines, right? The lines that have more of a fixed fate with them. We call the fifth line the heretic, and we call it the heretic for a very important reason. The fifth line, first of all, is, again, transpersonal line. It's in the upper trigram. The role or the purpose of the fifth line is to take whatever is in their design, whatever is in your design, in your chart, you're here to share it with the world, whether you're sharing it as a teacher or you're sharing it out in the world, usually in some way a teacher. When I say teacher, I'm not saying necessarily school teacher. I mean, whatever you end up doing, whether you're working as a grocery clerk or you're working in a corporation, you're oftentimes the one who's sharing what you know, sharing yourself, your energy, your wisdom with the world, because that's part of your purpose. The way that it gets a little tricky, and the fifth line can be a little tricky, so you really have to, you're a fifth line profile. I'm going to tell you this right now. Put your pencil down. You're a fifth line profile. Listen to me carefully. You have got to learn to love yourself unconditionally. If you're a fifth line profile, that's your number one imperative. And number two, you have got to learn to just wipe off anything else anybody says about you. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage. And sometimes it takes alone time. You do need alone time if you're a fifth line profile as well. What happens with the fifth line is this. The fifth line serves as what I would like to call a karmic healer, meaning when you're a fifth line energy, You walk around with a big, giant, energetic mirror in your aura. You're shiny, okay? People will see you from miles away because there's karmic attraction there. Anytime you meet anybody in your fifth line profile, you have to know that there's something that that other person needs from you. And it isn't necessarily something you have to do. It's something that's in your aura that they get from their interaction with you that's karmic. It's something they need for their own journey. What happens when you are a fifth line profile, because you've got this big karmic mirror in your aura, is that people will see through their interaction with you what they need to see to heal themselves. Now, unfortunately, they don't have a manual with them, so they're interacting with you and they don't realize, oh, this person's a fifth line profile and they're reflecting back to me what I need to see to heal myself. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Maybe you could get some cards printed out that you could hand to people when they come up to you. If you're a fifth line, that might help. What happens is oftentimes people will project onto the fifth line profile. They project fantasies. They project fantasies about seduction. They project expectations from you. Oh, you said you would, or you told me you would meet me here. They project fantasies onto you. Sometimes they project onto you that you're going to save them and that you're going to give them whatever they need to do whatever they need to do. And the truth is, you're not here to fulfill their dysfunctional needs. You're not here to fulfill their needs that they need to be or should be fulfilling for themselves. You're here simply to serve as that mirror. What people do with the reflection is not up to you. It can be painful because sometimes, as I said, they make it personal. And whatever they're seeing about themselves through their interaction with you, they actually need to be looking at their own bathroom mirror and getting clear about. So the trick is, and again, as I said, it takes a lot of self-love. And frankly, I think a lot of understanding to go, okay, wait, people don't actually really see me for who I am. They see in me what they need to see for themselves. If you can do that, it can help you stop taking those painful projections and those painful disappointments that people project onto you. It helps you stop taking them personally. So you can start to go, okay, wait, that's not me, that's them. I'm just going to stand here and smile. And if they want to project onto me, not my problem. That's huge. If you can do that, that's huge. Sometimes fifth line profiles, when they learn about the fifth line, they get a little bit despairing and they say, oh my God, this is like an ill curse or a doomed fate. It's not. If you live true to yourself, and as I said, if you drop into your own self-love, and this is crucial for you, you drop into your own self-love and you stand in that place and you follow your strategy by type, you will attract into your life the people who will project onto you the right expectations, the right exalted understandings of who you are. And you will be working with the people who are your people who will hold you up also to your highest potential and who will see through you the lessons they need to see to grow and expand. And they'll be grateful to you for what you've shown them or reflected back to them. So don't think that it's going to be hell with every human. It's only hell with the dysfunctional humans. The right people, when you are true to yourself and you hold your own value and you hold your own worth and your own lovability and you anchor that strongly in place. And if you need help doing that, we'll talk about that at the end. The more you hold that, the more then you are able to find and attract the people who lift you up and show you the right perspective of who you are. The karmic purpose of the fifth line is to serve as the karmic mirror for others and to support the healing process through the reflection of teaching and sharing the highest potential of humanity possible. Okay? The line 6. The sixth line is again our top of our line, our top of the line of our upper trigram, our karmic lines. So again, remember that the sixth line has somewhat of a fixed fate. You're a sixth line profile. You are not going to miss the boat on your destiny. You are not going to fail your mission. You can't. It's going to keep showing up again and again and again because that's what you're here to do. The thing that's really important to understand about the sixth line is that the sixth line has three distinct life cycles. The first cycle goes from birth to approximately 28.6 years of age. That first life cycle, your Saturn cycle, is the marking spot of the end of the first life cycle for the sixth line profile. So from birth to your Saturn return, that's your first life cycle as a sixth line profile. And that first cycle, you actually experience life as a third line profile. So you go through a cycle in your youth that's experiential and exploratory. And it might mean that in that cycle, you bump into things and you don't always get things right. Maybe you go to college and then you hate the career that you picked. Maybe you do a marriage and it turns out it wasn't really the best decision. Maybe you have, friendships that come apart. Maybe you move to the wrong part of the country and it doesn't feel right. It's normal for you. In fact, it's expected that you might bump around a little bit in your youth as a sixth line profile. So if that's your experience, or that was your experience, it wasn't that you were screwed up. It wasn't that you did anything wrong. It wasn't that you necessarily needed therapy or that you were dysfunctional. It's that you're supposed to experiment and explore in that first part of your life. And in fact, we start to do the math on how many sixth line profiles are there and how many third line profiles are there. The bottom line is that most of us, until our first Saturn cycle, are designed to experiment and explore and not necessarily get it always right the first time. So the first cycle is experimentation. The second cycle is the one that's the trickiest. The second cycle goes from the first Saturn cycle until the Chiron return. So approximately 28.6 years of age to about 50 years of age. Now, if you are a sixth line profile, you might not experience that. You might not experience the real feeling of the second cycle until you hit about 35, 36, 37. I find most sixth line profiles really start to really lock into, something's really changed around the mid 30s. The second phase is called being on the roof. So we say the sixth line goes up on the roof at Saturn and it stays on the roof until their Chiron return at 50. That being on the roof phase is first and foremost a cycle of deep healing. When you are on the roof, you're designed to heal from all the experimentation and exploration you did in the first cycle. Second thing is it's a learning cycle. The cycle when your experimentation and your exploration now comes to looking at and watching what other people are doing. You're exploring what other people do and you're studying and watching very carefully. In fact, that's why I call being on the roof, right? You're up there and you're just watching everybody else. What are they doing? What are they up to? You're healing and you're integrating new information. It can be, and this is the part that's really important to understand, it can be a time when your energy kind of tends to go down to the pilot light, especially, by the way, if you are a 6-2 profile. The 6-2 goes up on the roof and they don't like to come down. That hermit wants to take over, but hermit doesn't get to win. So it's very common if you're a sixth line profile to really have a limited amount of energy. And that energy oftentimes can only go towards things like taking care of my family or growing a business or taking care of your family and business, but then that's it. When you're on the roof, you don't want to make small talk. You don't really want to date if you're single. You don't really want to do anything that doesn't have deep meaning for you as a sixth line profile. By the way, I didn't say this about the sixth line in its youth, but this is something else to think about. A lot of sixth line profiles, when they're young, they're always in a hurry. Like they have this internal sense that they're heading towards something and they want to get there quickly, but they don't always know what it is, but they're in a hurry. I can't tell you how many readings I've done for sixth line profile people who start college at 15 and 16 because they're like in this hurry, right? So the sixth line, when they're on the roof though, in the second phase, their energy is down, they're inside themselves. It's sort of an internal cycle. They don't have a lot of extra energy. You might find if you're a sixth line on the roof that doing things that seemingly are not that draining, like answering emails, seems like an utterly overwhelming task. You don't have the energy for it. You don't want to be bothered. You don't want to make small talk. You don't want to answer the phone. You screen all your calls. That's the nature of the sixth line. When you get towards the end of that second cycle, around age 45, 46, 47, you start to feel momentum changing. And all of a sudden now you start feeling like, that thing that I've been waiting for, that purpose of my life, that mission is really starting to come out of me. It's in me and I'm feeling it. It can be actually kind of a very frustrating time because the momentum is building at that part of the cycle. You can start to feel like, oh, my soulmate partnership is coming, oh, my book is coming, oh, my career is coming, right? My purpose is about to be fulfilled, but it's still not quite popping yet. And so you can put a lot of energy into building it and pushing it, and you still don't quite get the explosion that you're hoping for. It's going to happen. Remember, this is a fixed fate. It'll happen. But it usually doesn't happen until you get off the roof, and sometimes even a couple of years off the roof. So 50, 52, all of a sudden, when you get to that third and final phase where you emerge out into the world as a role model, you then can integrate everything that you experienced, everything you've learned into this beingness that serves in the world as a role model. People will look to you, and they'll do that even in your youth, but people will look to you like, this person knows because this person has the experience and the wisdom. You'll step into the expression of the mature aspect of yourself. And oftentimes it isn't until you cross that 50-year mark, things in your life don't start to really take off. So technically the sixth line can sometimes be a late bloomer, but you're not really late. You're right on time because you have a fixed fate. You're exactly where you need to be to serve the world as the role model. The quantum purpose of the sixth line is to experience, integrate, and demonstrate the highest potential of consciousness on the planet, and then to quietly show us, because you're not necessarily going to be bombastic and out there going, come on, y'all, follow me. It's just you being you, and there is a certain amount of aloofness for the sixth line. Even when you come off the roof in your mature phase, you don't really want to get involved in something unless it's really going to be worth your while. Once you do that, you oftentimes will just very quietly, by demonstrating to the world what it looks like, quietly show the rest of us how to live it. I want to thank you all for showing up and being open and willing to continue to redefine the story of who you are. I just read a book with my youngest daughter called The Story Thieves, and I'm so sorry that I forgot the writer's name, and go look it up on Amazon. It's a great sort of tween age fiction, and it's really cool. And part of what happens in this book, The Story Thieves, is people accidentally fall into other people's stories and they start living other people's stories. And it's so interesting to watch the disasters that happen when somebody steps into the wrong story that's not their story and they try to live it. You know, it's such a beautiful metaphor for our lives, right? When you go out in the world and you try to live somebody else's story, the story that you were told by maybe the people who loved you but didn't understand you the way you understand yourself, that you should go do this, or you should get this degree, or you should go get this kind of job, or be in this kind of relationship, or go for this kind of pursuit. And when we try to live that story that's not our own, disaster happens. Things don't work right. You burn out. It doesn't feel good. And not only that, you're not playing your place. You're not in your place, in your role in the cosmic plan. So I want to honor you all for being here today and for being so open to being on a journey of self-discovery so that you can continue to deepen your story, the expression of your story in the world. The more you do that, the more you live true to who you are. That story that is you is the contribution that you make to the world. I hope you've learned a little bit today about the beauty of who you are. You all have a wonderful weekend, and bye.